After the Civil War, America was at a crossroads. The once divided nation had been reunited, slavery had been abolished, and one of the nation's great presidents had been assassinated. Out of these turbulent times emerged a nation that bore little resemblance to the one Americans had known before, and an even greater change was just beginning as America started to move from the farmland to the factory. Big business grew rapidly during the Gilded Age. This was due to several factors. New and improved machinery aided the workforce in producing an increased number of goods in a shorter amount of time. In 1883, Andrew Carnegie bought Homestead Works in western Pennsylvania to add to his growing collection of steel mills. Carnegie had begun working at the age of 13 as a lowly assistant in a textile mill. But through his will and determination, he became one of the richest men in the world. Carnegie's mills were immensely profitable due to an increased demand for steel in the post-Civil War era. As cities and businesses boomed, steel was needed to erect tall buildings and build bridges. The greatest demand for steel, however, came from the industry that would change the country the most during the Gilded Age, the rapidly expanding railroad. Invented by Thomas Edison, the electric light would change the way people lit their homes, and the motion picture would go on to change the notions of entertainment and culture. Alexander Graham Bell's invention, the telephone, was starting to change the way people communicated. In 1876, the year the invention debuted, there were only 3,000 telephones in the entire country. By 1900, that number was well over 1 million, and rapidly growing each year. It was during the Gilded Age that the world got its first look at the automobile. Called the horseless carriage, the automobile would change the face of transportation in the coming decades. The Gilded Age was a difficult era in the history of the United States. It was a period of immense growing pains, during which Americans were forced to adapt as their country rapidly changed around them. In 1894, workers boycotted and picketed George Pullman's railroad works. Enraged when Pullman slashed employee wages and raised rents in his company town, the workers refused to work and rallied against any railroads that used Pullman cars. Over 250,000 workers went on strike, and railroad traffic was severely affected. Again, U.S. troops were called in to crush the strikers and return the railroads to working order. The Pullman strike was also a failure. Many of the organizers were imprisoned, and many of the laborers were blacklisted from future work in the railroad industry. In 1870, an adventurous 30-year-old entrepreneur named John D. Rockefeller founded the Standard Oil Company. In the days before the automobile was invented, the primary use for oil was in the gas lamps that lit people's homes. The Standard Oil Company refined petroleum into kerosene for just this purpose. Jane Addams set up settlement houses in many of the nation's big cities. The houses offered a variety of clubs, functions, and education classes to immigrants. One of her most noted establishments, the Hull House in Chicago, still stands as a testament to her unwavering dedication and her tireless lobbying for the rights of the underprivileged. 31 state legislatures passed compulsory education laws, meaning that young children were legally obligated to go to school. By 1898, roughly 15 million children were attending school on a regular basis. The women's suffrage movement was still in its infancy, and it would still be many years until women were given the right to vote, but society was beginning to change to their benefit. More women were joining the workforce than ever before. More than half of America's colleges turned coeducational and began graduating women as doctors, lawyers, and other high-ranking professionals. They also joined volunteer committees like the Daughters of the American Revolution. Another economic downturn called the Panic of 1893 rocked the economy and fueled even more drastic disputes between the impoverished laborers and the corporate management officials, who were increasingly seen as the enemy. In 1886, a nationwide strike broke out. Workers wanted the grueling 12-hour workday changed to a reasonable 8-hour day. 12,000 companies throughout the country were affected by the strike, with nearly 340,000 workers walking out of the workplace and onto the picket line. During one demonstration in Chicago, a bomb exploded as police were trying to break up the unrest, and one police officer was killed. The rest of the police opened fire into the crowd, killing one laborer and wounding many more. 4 of the labor organizers were held responsible for the deadly riot and were hanged as a result.